Okay. No, wrong thing. All right, guys, so we are going to record, and just to make sure, this is our strategy breakout group for student to teacher feedback. So hopefully y'all are in the right place. I'm glad to see both of you here today. Let me just share my, I'm not sure which one's going to be best. Window, I think. Sorry, guys, give me 1 second. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to put it into, I'm going to put it into presenter mode. Just give me 1 second. I can't figure out which one it is. All right. Awesome. So you guys, like I said, we're in feedback from students to teachers. We are going to take a look here. So let's start off with talking about what this is. So our overview of what this means is that we're going to be gathering information about students and their learning experiences and how they inform our classroom decisions. So when we regularly solicit and reflect on student feedback about how well the class is meeting their needs, we make sure that we're hearing student voice and hearing what's most important to them, which obviously we know is extremely important for us as educators and why we're here to do this job. So during the strategy, we're going to be examining technology options for collecting these frequent feedback from students in order to change classroom practices and co-create a more effective learning environment for our students. I'm going to do something real quick. I apologize. I'm just going to pop you guys into my other screen so I can see you. All right.
Okay, and so again, how we're connecting this to that CRE piece that we talked about, global context, is that we know that students need to have the opportunity to give us feedback, just like we give them feedback, but we also want to hear their voice. And so for feedback to be effective, we have to give students the opportunity to actually do it. They have to act on it. And so we have to engage our students' willingness to act on our feedback and looking at their work to understand what they get and identify where they're at, what they need. And so giving them opportunities to give us that feedback, we're kind of able to go and look at, okay, this is what my students are wanting, this is what my students are learning, or this is what we need to give them to continue to support them. And that all comes from Zaretta Hammond and the Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain book. And so we know that it's super important for students to have that voice in the classroom, as we've talked a little bit about every module. And feedback is also extremely important as well.
All right, so since we have a small group today, we're going to kind of figure out what works best for y'all. So 2 options here would be to follow along with the tools that we're going to show you today, those resources. You will also have an option to work independently. On the right-hand side, if you do choose to work independently, you'll be able to see some of the articles and such that we have to kind of go a little bit deeper into why using student feedback is so important and how it helps us as educators create an environment in which students can learn more fitting with their needs. Otherwise, right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the resources and tools that we have provided and told you that we're going to go through. And you're welcome to follow along as we work. So if you do choose to work independently, that's totally fine. But just make sure that you are, you can keep your camera off, you can, stay muted, but then at the end, we will ask that you kind of participate in going through what you've done during that workshop time.
And if you do choose to work independently, we have some links there. So read one of those articles. The one of them is Listening to Students by Elena Aguilar. And why, is it good or important for students to be able to evaluate their teachers and give their teachers feedback in that way? So those are 2 articles that you can look at and read, or you can watch 1 or 2 or watch both of the short videos about why students should really listen to, why we should really listen to student voices, and then student surveys and using student voice in the classroom. So you have some videos there to watch, and then you can jump into the tools that we have mentioned on the side: Jamboard, Google Slides, Google Forms, or student feedback in Seesaw. And if you are working independently, just be sure to, and you turn your camera off or you log out, just be sure to log back in about 10:35 so that we can do a quick 2-minute debrief before we go back to the big room.
So if you are going to follow along, we're going to go through right now. We're just going to start off with why we should really listen to student voices. So inside your tiny URL link, these videos are here as well, but I'm just going to present it for you. And hopefully that didn't work. Okay, hold on just 1 second. Let me stop presenting. Present my new tab. All right. Share.
It's a pretty short video.
Yeah, it's a pretty short video. I'm going to turn, if you guys will just make sure if it echoes, just let me know. I'm going to turn off.
I think if we really listen to student voices, we'd be shocked by what we heard.
What's the goal of our school system? To educate students, right? Yet students have the least input on how they get educated. It's the adults who get to decide.
One of the best things I had when I led Chicago Public Schools was Student Advisory Council. That group helped me think through so many things. When things are going well, young people know it way before adults do. When things aren't going well, young people know it way before we as adults do. Why? Because they're living it.
This may be a no-brainer for those who work with students frequently, but many still think that students aren't serious enough to have input. Well, meet Nidalis Burgos. She's 18 years old, and she just graduated from Lincoln Park High School in Chicago.
We are the ones as students that sit in a classroom. We're the ones who listen to our teachers, who understand our teachers, who have to take tests at the end of the day. Students have realized the attack on education is hitting very close to home. It's important to stand up because it affects everyone.
Students do understand what's wrong with education, but student voice is more than just information for adults. It's a way to engage students in their education on their own terms.
Particularly with kids who are struggling, the key to their success is their engagement. The thing we always hear from kids that kind of leave school is like, they don't care about me. Nobody knows me there. Nobody cares if I'm at school or not.
Some school leaders are listening to their students. Take Principal Sharif El-Mekki, for example. He used student input to help turn around a school that had struggled with violence.
Our school was the second most violent school in the state of Pennsylvania. There were school police officers, 3 of them for 250 7th and 8th grade students. Students were suspended and expelled. The violence was tremendous, and their experiences really helped shape what we're trying to do in the community. What makes them feel safe, what makes them enjoy coming to school, what would get them to school on days that they really didn't feel like coming.
Student voice has the potential to drive change in our education system. So what could that change look like?
Having students be part of a selection process, whether it's around teachers, whether it's around principals, whether parents and community members. Again, schools they serve the community.
Right now, I do think I see a lot of hope in students walking out, students starting to organize, students starting to figure out they have power. It's happening. It's happening in Baltimore, it's happening in Los Angeles, it's happening in different cities.
Whether your thing is going out on the street and rallying, or your thing is writing a letter to the mayor, whatever it is, it's important because it shows that we're reaching out to save our own education.
So let's stop believing the myths about student voice. The question is not whether it is important or valuable. The real question is, how are we going to use it?
There comes a time when students need to understand that it is a responsibility. We can't leave this to other people because if we do, the job won't be done right. And that's why student power is important.
All right, let me go back to our presentation real quick. Okay, maybe this is it, we'll see. It's the wrong one. Hold on just a second, guys, sorry. 3 different million tabs open. All right, so as we can see, it's obviously important for us to be able to have our student voice be recognized and there at all times. Obviously, as we are in the elementary cohort over here, we might not necessarily see students walking out and protesting or having that as outspoken of a voice in that way. However, we are providing them tools and platforms for them to be able to use their voice and create a system in which the education, is there for what they deserve. So let's move.
And I was gonna say, I know we are like elementary K-5, but at one of the schools I taught at last school year before last, some of the second, third, and fourth graders actually, they didn't walk out, but they actually protested on the playground and wrote letters to the principal about how they should get more recess. And so even at a younger age and younger grades, these kids, they are seeing that their voices should be important and that they have a voice and they're wanting to use those voices even at school, regardless if they're in kindergarten or second grade. It's very important that we give those students the opportunity and that they know that they can speak up and speak out and use their voices at school.
So as we go through, we're gonna just briefly go through Google Forms, Google Slides, Jamboard, and Seesaw. If there is anything in here that you don't necessarily use, feel free to let us know, but we will just briefly go through it all so that you guys will then have time to go through and work on something on your own, okay? So we are going to start off, this is just inside of that tiny URL. This is where some of the links are that we have that we'll be going over today. So I'm just going to skim past that. And we're going to start with Google Forms. So for either of you, if you haven't used Google Forms, great option for exit tickets, for conversations, for, I was telling the last group that I used it for like an entrance and exit ticket in which we did like a which one doesn't fit and gave them the same exit and entrance ticket. And then they were able to explain their reasoning and come back with some feedback for each other. So I'm just going to kind of preview this exit ticket here. This is, let me just open up another slide or another tab. Sorry, guys. Where is it? That didn't pop up. Just give me 1 second. Oh, okay. That's not the right one either. Sorry, guys, just 1 second.
Presentations are so much harder now on Google Meet instead of in person.
We have 3 different screens going.
Yes.
Okay. So if we look here, this is my example exit ticket. So for either of you, I'm sure you have seen these in our waffle before, but I'm just going to preview real quick. Especially for elementary, this is one of the coolest pieces for me is being able to create a background, like a theme for your exit ticket or your form. You can also add images into this. So this is obviously when you go into Google Forms, it starts off with asking if you want to make a blank form or if you want to do an exit ticket. It has kind of this option already here for you. I just added a few things in. So the exit ticket, I have a little bit of directions, your first and last name, so I know who's speaking to me. How did the lesson go? I might make it more specific, like whatever the lesson's about, using sliding scales, etc. But just so you guys know, in our presentation, we have videos on this, but I'm just going to briefly show you. If you come up to the painter's palette up here, you can actually create a different theme for your exit ticket. You can upload an image, you can change the color, so it changes it for the students, keeping them engaged that way. If you have younger students, you can also change based off adding in pictures, etc. for every question. So if I go in here for whatever reason, my first name, I would put, a picture of myself, and that wouldn't be the right question to add that in, but you can add in a picture so that students feel a little bit more able to answer questions if they're not able to add a proficiency for reading. So you can go to your camera, add it through a link, photos, etc. Just this way, it makes it more engaging for students. Otherwise, on our presentation, let me go back, hold on. On our presentation, there is the option. So there's a video for how to add in images. There's also an option for adding in, let's see. There's also the option for adding in, here we go. There's other template options here for you. And then this is where you can actually just create the exit ticket. So this is a great place for you to get real-time feedback from students quick. And you can take a look at their responses as they come in. This is just an option. If you're looking for something that's a little bit, potentially might be a little bit more advanced for, potentially like upper elementary, or if you would like to add in those images or create that custom theme so that it's more applicable to younger students as well. All right, this next one is our Google Slides, and I'm actually in this I'm in a presenter mode, but I'm going to show you the Google Slides audience tools. This is a pretty awesome way, again, for us to get real-time feedback pretty quickly from students. In my presentation here, I went out of the presenter mode so you guys can see. Up in the right-hand side, you're gonna see where it says present. There's an arrow that you can click on. And actually, when you click on presenter view, you will see this little box pops up. And this is going to be a new link, just so you know. So when you're here, you can see the speaker notes. This is my speaker notes, says that I'm supposed to be presenting the slide. But if you go to audience tools, this is where, I can actually continue the other one. So this is where you can create a Q&A poll for your students. Again, this might be a little bit more on that upper elementary side, but if students just need a yes, a no, a hi, whatever you want them to be putting in, this is a great place for them to be able to answer questions in real time. You can either click on start. It will normally, if you haven't done this, it'll just say start new, but I did do it from our last session. So I'm going to click on continue recent. And so what you'll see here is you will be able to see questions pop up. So Shayla's going to pop in a question in just a second. Let me continue this. And what happens is that on your presentation, a URL pops up, and you can actually put that in. If you use platforms like Seesaw, you can put that URL in there so students have it. You can, if you use Land School Air, you can send that URL out to your students, etc. But so Shayla is going to log in. She's going to put a comment in. Brittany, one of the other digital coaches from our last round, put in, Ms. Bott's awesome. Great, you can put in any question. The students can put in questions. You can present it to the students so that they can actually see. You can like it. You can tell them, I would say we're probably not going to use the thumbs down. That's not great feedback for our students. But as we add questions in, you'll be able to see that this is one way that students can be able to get their questions answered right away. And one of the cool pieces here is I know I've had students in the past tell me they wanted to ask questions, but they were nervous to ask it, whole class. So this is another place where if the student says, please don't, present this, but I have a question. So Shayla just popped in, asked, how can I use Google Slides? This is a great place for me to be able to answer right away. Christina, go ahead. You're muted. Christina, we can't hear you. You're muted.
When I do that. Sorry, I hate when I do that. So my kids do create their portfolios in Google Slides.
Perfect.
And I'm wondering if they ask a question or if I ask a question in their Google Slides, since I have access to them, where do the answers go and how do I see them? And can you kind of go through asking a question and somebody else answering it so I can see how it
Absolutely. Yeah. So I will stop presenting in just a second so then Shayla can show her screen so you can see the student view. But if you personally are asking them a question, this is not going to be the place where you're going to ask them a question. You can do that using like comments on their Google Slides. But if they are inside of their presentations and they want, it would be one of those situations where you would be presenting some sort of content to your students, and then you pop in using that URL so that they can ask questions if they didn't understand what you were talking about or that kind of thing. If you want them to be able to ask questions like on, through their portfolios, then they're going to want to use probably like a comment section instead. But I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to stop share so that Shayla can show you what the student view looks like, just so you can see.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
And this is going to be, she's already popped in the slides.app.go. Whatever those letters are.
So this is what it looks like from the student view. And I have the option to like answer anonymous or ask my question or give feedback anonymously. Or if I want to show my name, I can. But then you just type in the question here and then click submit.
And this is a place where students can also put in, like, you can see all of the questions that they ask. So if like a teacher hasn't gotten to the question, right, they're going through their presentation, they haven't gotten to their question, other kids they're not going to be able to comment on it, but they could be like, hey, Ms. Bott, Shayla actually asked this question. Can you stop and tell us about this? Can you answer it before you continue on? Does that make sense? So it's more, I think it's more applicable for student feedback in the sense of like, how the lesson's going, what needs to be changing in that moment, or like for later lessons. But when it comes to like using in their portfolio, we can definitely show you at another time, or like when you're doing your workshopping, how to ask questions and such like on their portfolios, if that makes sense. Did that answer your question? We can't really hear you. Sorry. No, there we go.
I know how to use the comment tool when you do that, but if I have access to their slides, is it not possible for me to ask them? I don't know how that would come through. So if I open up their portfolio slide and then I go to present and I ask these questions, can they then answer it from their side?
So you would have to go in, have them, you'd have to have it in the audience tools. And if you're going to ask them a question, you would have to be going through their like the link, that slides.go or .app. You'd have to go through there to ask the question, but we can definitely kind of, look through that after we go through the other strategies, and I can definitely go through it and see, because that's something that we should see if that is possible for sure. Does that sound good? Okay, awesome. So I will definitely remember to come back to that for sure. So let me just get out of this real quick. Sorry. We're gonna come back to here. All right, so on this slide, on our slide deck, there is kind of a step-by-step also for using audience tools. So you guys are welcome to go through that. I don't think that it's going to have your question answered in there, Christina, so I will definitely want to come back and take a look at that. But for audience tools, just again, another great way for students to give you feedback right then and there. And then you can always go back into the questions, answer them at the end of the lesson or whatnot. Or if you have it side by side, you'll be able to answer as you go through your presentation.
All right, so the next way that you can get student to teacher feedback is by using Jamboard, which is basically a big digital whiteboard. If you have never used Jamboard or you're not sure quite how to set up your Jamboard, you would do it through Google. But we do have a link, I believe, earlier in the slides.
Where it says like demo or practicing, and there's a link there.
Yep, there is a link to show you how to get started, like a beginner's guide on how to get started and how to get set up with using Jamboard. But Jamboard is a really quick and effective way to get student feedback, especially for those younger students. If you want to solicit feedback from every student in the classroom at one time, you could totally just set up a Jamboard at the beginning of your lesson or at the end of your class. So I have two examples here. The first example is like a fist to 5. And so this is what the Jamboard actually looks like. And let's say you just wrapped up a lesson or a concept that you're teaching maybe about plants or something with science, and you're asking your students like, okay, on a fist to 5, show me, what you feel about this lesson. Do you need more? Do you need more feedback? Do you need more support with this? Or how else can I help you? Show me, with your hands. So you would have your students type in their name in a sticky note, and then they can just kind of move it anywhere on the scale where they feel comfortable. And then that kind of tells you like, okay, I know that out of 20 students, 10 of my students gave me a 3. They're not quite getting the concept. We need to come back to that. Or all of my kids move their little name sticky over to the 5, so they all feel great about the next step in our lesson. And so this is, again, a really quick way to get some feedback from students right in real time in the moment. This one is already created, so if you have the link, so if you wanted to save this one to your Google Drive, you totally could just make a copy of it, and then you would always have this Jamboard already created for you, ready to go to use in your classroom. The second example is 3 things, Jamboard, that you can do. So like for this one, you can, if you're just wrapping up a unit or a lesson, ask your students to create a sticky note and give you feedback on like, what are 3 things you learned from this lesson? Or what 3 questions do you still have? Or 3 wonderings do you still have? What are 3 things we could have done to change the lesson or make the lesson better? So this is just another quick way to get that feedback from students in real time and have them go ahead and add that in there, and then you can save it and you'll have it. And then I don't know if you notice at the top that little box there that says 1 of 1. So you can click the arrow and you can always add more pages to that Jamboard. And so if your students wanted to add more pieces of feedback to give you, you have that option there. You can change the background. You can add in images, especially for those younger students, if you wanted to add in images and pictures. So just another really quick, simple way to get that feedback from students, and students K-5 can totally use this, and you can just save this Jamboard to your drive, and here's another quick example that you already have and you don't have to create on your own.
Yes, absolutely. So you, depending on what platform you're using, Seesaw, Google Classroom, etc., you can just put the link right in there for your Jamboard, and it is accessible to students. They can just click in. You can say, go in there, you know, answer your Jamboard. At the end of our presentation in a moment, we're going to actually have you practice. We have a Jamboard link for you to pop in a question or an answer, I guess, to answer a question. And really easy to just access it using that link for sure.
Yeah, especially for the kinder kids, the kinder first grade kids, if they struggle with, like, I know some teachers are saying that they already have like the Jamboard app installed on their students' like devices. But if you didn't want to do that, or you're like, oh, my first grade, my kinder kids are going to struggle with that, you can totally just take the link, put it right into Seesaw, and then have students click right from it within Seesaw, and then they're able to participate and utilize the Jamboard right in that moment. All right, so the next way that you can get student to teacher feedback is definitely using Seesaw. Seesaw Journals is an awesome way. Student journals within Seesaw is an awesome way to get feedback, especially after you have assigned an activity and students have completed the activity and they have further questions that they want to ask you. Seesaw is really great because it gives students the option to not only type in their feedback to the teacher or if they have questions, but they can also record their feedback or record the questions that they wanted to ask their teacher right within the LMS platform. And so the second link here that says student feedback activity, here is just an activity that's already created within Seesaw. So if you have a classroom already set up and you're like, oh, I can have my students do this feedback all the time, you can save the activity and you can assign it to your students later. Here's just a really quick student feedback activity where, let's say you were having your students do some work around writing and they needed to give you feedback, or you wanted them to give feedback to a peer. You can assign this to them and then they can type in their feedback. They can use voice record to give the feedback. They can draw pictures. So it's really cool. And this is something that you don't even have to create on your own. It's already created for you within Seesaw. Just save it and add it to your activity library, and you'll always have that already set up for you within the Seesaw platform. And then I know some teachers have been using like actual feedback routines that they have set up. And so here's just an example of a teacher that had a feedback routine already created and set up within her Seesaw. And so she would just have her students, anytime she created an activity, her students would go, when they would log in, they would see that activity or that feedback protocol within their inbox in their student journal. And they knew how to go in, click on the little link, and then under the notification, she would have what they needed to be giving her feedback for. And then the students will record their feedback. And so this teacher, this was like a daily routine that she already had in place so that she was getting feedback every single day from her students on their activities and assignments, which is really cool because then it's already built in and they instantly know, oh, I got to check my feedback and I have to respond to the feedback to my teacher. And they could use the voice comments or again, typing it in. So this is really, really cool, really, really quick again. And you always have that feedback within their student journal. You can show it to parents. You can show it to other, if you were collaborating with other people in the building, you guys could have that already set up. So it's really simple and really quick for that. And then now here's just a picture that I showed of like an example of some feedback that I had actually from My classroom, when I taught Seesaw, I would, on Fridays or Mondays, I would kind of have my students fill out this, like, how are you feeling today? So that I can kind of get an idea of like how they're feeling coming into the classroom when we were remote. And so my students would, some of them like to type in how they were feeling. Some of them like to use emojis to express how they were feeling to give me feedback. Some of them like to do voice recordings. And so this particular one was on a Friday, and just I asked the students, like, how are you feeling today? And he was just kind of like, he's feeling great because he has less schoolwork. And his whole idea, and he kind of typed it in down there, was that he does not like having homework on the weekends. And he really thought that weekend should be 3.5 days. And so he would give me that feedback. And knowing that, I would make sure to keep his homework or his activities less on the weekends, because that's just not something that he liked. And so again, it's just really like, and this is kindergarten. So as you can see, like, kindergartners can use those emojis, use the voice recording to give teachers feedback and have their voices be heard. And then the teachers can take that and kind of plan accordingly with their instruction on how they're supporting students in the classroom.
So here, and this is in your tiny URL as well into the link for these slides, but we've just got some additional resources. Some of them, all of them are including why we should be hearing student feedback. And so, using, some of those links or videos there, you can see why student surveys are important to use, stopping and asking for feedback from your students, and then listening to our students, and then just closing that loop for our students so that they know that their voice really matters in their education. So this is there for you. I want to make sure that we give you time to kind of peruse some of these resources. So I am going to give you, I would say, we don't have too much time, unfortunately, but we're going to give you probably like 7 minutes to explore one of those tools and see what you could utilize inside your classroom. And then we just have a reflection question for you at the very end. So feel free to take a few moments, kind of peruse those resources. Let me know if you guys need the link again for the slides, and then we'll come back like 10:38, and then we'll just answer a quick question before we head back to our main group.
And did you want to support Christina?
Yeah, Christina, I'm going to go and look real quick while we're doing this workshop, and I'm just going to see if there's a way for me to show you on the audience tools how to get that feedback, okay?
Okay. Well, I have I kind of tried it. Like, I opened up a kid's assignment.
Okay.
So can I
Do
share?
you want to share? Yeah, you want to share? Can you share? Let's see.
Let me just get my entire screen. Okay. All right. Can you see it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what I did is I just went into one of my Google Classrooms. Here's their assignments for like Pella's. And since I have access to them, then I went down here and did their license, present, present review. Let's see, audience tools. Okay, continue recent. Okay, so I went in here and I asked a question.
Okay.
Like, are you comfortable using the tools? So then she could actually answer this.
Yes. So in here, if it's just going to be between the two of you, this link might be one of those things where you put in, this has to be active, right? So you're going to use this same link. And what you could do is in a comment on their presentation, you can say, log into this, using the URL so that we can have feedback between the two of us. That way, then she can just put in right there. It'll be her Google. She'll put in her answer. It's as if you're asking, it's really meant for like a Q&A, like the answer would be verbal, right? But in this situation, if it's just between the two of you, then that way she can answer it right where it says ask a question, right? So it could be back and forth like that, kind of just like a message board sort of idea. What I would do, and I actually think that this could be a cool way for her to be able to do, or the student to be able to answer questions, would be just if you put the link like as a comment, and then you can show your students too, like as a whole group, and just say, I have put on all of your presentations, I have put a link on your presentation for us to be able to ask and answer questions back and forth between the two of us. And that way, then that student has just those questions and answers just between the two of you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that could work, definitely. If you feel more comfortable doing that rather than just doing the comment option, then for sure. It would just require that they get in. I mean, you can also like do a one-on-one. This could be an option where you do a one-on-one with a student, put it on her presentation in particular, put the link and see if it works or if commenting would work better. That's totally an option too. Yeah.
Roy, I can send you an email with the link to check out the Makerspace kits for you. I'll send that to you today. You can definitely check out one of those podcasting kits. We were looking at them last week. They are really, really cool. Really cool.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we have some of our digital coaches are doing podcasts of their own, and we went down and explored all of those tools in the Makerspace area. And so that's definitely something worth checking out and utilizing for sure. So as we kind of closed up, I know we only got a few moments, but since it's just the two of you, if you guys feel comfortable, I'm just gonna present this real quick to you. Let me go here. So if we take a look on our slide deck, you'll put it in. We just want to kind of know, using some of these tools and resources that we've looked at, like what is one way that you're going to incorporate that student feedback into your classroom? I feel like we've already kind of, just by your questions, we've kind of heard from you, but what Shayla's done is she's going to put in the Jamboard right there, link into our chat. So then you guys can just practice using that Jamboard. That's another option. And I'm just going to click on here so you guys can see what it looks like. This was from our last presentation as well. So incorporating that student feedback, let's hear how you're going to do it. One of the other teachers that we had in our group said that they're going to use Seesaw journals. Shayla put in that she's going to incorporate Google Forms and Jamboard for that feedback. This is just cool for you guys to be able to see how to utilize Jamboard as an example. But like Shayla told you up here, you can make it across classrooms too. So if you guys have multiple classes, like if you're specials or STEM or something, then you can actually make it and it says, like you can put at the top, this is Miss Bott's class, this is Miss Williams' class, whatnot. And they just add a sticky note on the left-hand side, put it in here. They can change the color. You can change the background. They're all very cool options, but if you'll just add in one or two things that you think you guys would use inside of this Jamboard, just so you can practice with it too, that'd be awesome.
And the cool thing about Jamboard is that it'll automatically save to your Google Drive, so you can always go back and access it so that you can, pull up later, like, oh, I need to go back and see how my first grade class felt about that activity. Let me see what their feedback was. Or, okay, let me go look and see what my science class felt about it. So it's really cool because you can always go back and access it.
There you go. And then, go ahead, Roy.
Into Jamboard, like video responses.
I do not know if you can add, let me see.
So on the left-hand side, you can see here, there's like
notes, add an image. You can add in text box. I do not think Jamboard has the capability yet for you to add in voice notes just quite yet.
If you have like lower elementary, one of the cool, so you can add in images.
Yep.
One of the cool things though, like if I did this with one of my students, is that if it's like down here on my, whatever I'm asking them, right? If I said, please take a picture of yourself to tell me how you're feeling today, like just a quick check-in, right? So you can go over to these images and you can click on camera, take a picture of yourself, and then you can insert that in, and then that way, then your teacher can see how you're feeling, that kind of thing. So video, I don't know that that's an option.
But definitely being able to take a picture of an image and put that in there, you can totally do that, which is great too, because then you still have the option of using those images.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it 40 that we're supposed to come back?
Yep.
All right. Do you guys have any questions at all for us, like before we head back into our other meeting or?
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us. Roy, like if you need anything, I'm your digital coach, so totally reach out to me. I can support you with that. I'm super excited to see what you guys are going to do with Jamboard or Google Forms. This is really exciting.
Yeah, and Christina, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, my question is about the PDU.
Yes, yes, we are going to talk about that in our at the end, like our reflection, but let me hear your question now. Let me see if it's something